The game was too elaborate. You were enjoying yourself too much.
No such thing as too much.
No, enjoying the thrill of the chase is fine. Craving the distraction of the game, I sympathize entirely, but sentiment. Sentiment is a chemical defect found in the losing side.
Sentiment? What are you talking about?
You.
Oh dear God. Look at the poor man. You don't actually think I was interested in you. Why? Because you're the great Sherlock Holmes, the clever detective in the funny hat?
No. Because I took your pulse. Elevated. Your pupils dilated. I imagine John Watson thinks love's a mystery to me, but the chemistry is incredibly simple and very distractive. When we first met, you told me that disguise is always a self-portrait. How true of you. The combination to your safe, your measurements. But this is far more intimate. This is your heart, and you should never let it rule your head. You could have chosen any random number and walked out of here today with everything you've worked for. You just couldn't resist it, could you? I've always assumed that love is a dangerous disadvantage. Thank you for the final proof.
Everything I said, it's not real. I was just playing the game.
I know. And this is just losing.
Okay. As usual, I'm risking copyright block every time I do stuff like this. But good. Hello, whenever you watch this. So that was a clip from one of my favorite episodes from one of my favorite shows, Sherlock, the BBC series. Highly recommended. I think it started airing back in, what, like 08? Oh, like, it has to be earlier than that. But regardless, so this is a very, very old episode, The Scandal of Belgravia, which I think is the best episode that I've seen in that series. So go check that out. But that episode really, to me, summarizes the difference between thinking and feeling in an OP perspective and why they often are at war or often at odds, especially in social interactions, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the checklist, define some terms, and then I'm going to briefly walk you through what happens in that episode and then tie that into OP, just so that you could start to see it. And then, you know, depending on what your type is, you'll have some key takeaways. So let's start here. So feeling and thinking are decisions. They're decider functions. So they're involved in how you act, right? So whereas feeling is defined as priorities and values, thinking is defined as reasons and accomplishments. Now, in my interpretation of Sherlock, I believe that Sherlock, I don't know his full type yet. I need to watch a little bit more to do that. But I do believe that he has ST and NT in the top 3 of his animals or temperaments. What that means is that I believe that because he has ST and NT in the top 3, he's going to be predominantly a thinking type. He's going to be kind of fixated on thinking, okay? As a decision maker. Whereas Irene Adler, again, I don't know her full type. I have some guesses. But I definitely think that Irene has SF and NF in her top 3, according to this interpretation. Basically meaning that she's predominantly making decisions by feeling or values and things like that. Okay? Now, the reason I bring this up, first of all, other than the fact this is my favorite episode, so Irene is probably one of the few characters in the show Sherlock that has beaten Sherlock at his own game, in a sense. What do I mean by that? So Sherlock in this series, as some of you guys may know, he's a very successful detective. He has, superhuman, basically, qualities, right? He has like a photographic memory. He has a thorough understanding of multiple languages, multiple sciences, multiple disciplines. And he has a very sharp mind that enjoys puzzling things, solving riddles, solving problems in order to catch criminals and things like that. Now, in the context of this episode, Irene is, I'm not gonna spoil the plot, but basically Irene is basically a criminal herself, let's say, and she's basically trying to outwit Sherlock at his own game. But the way that she does it is not by trying to outthink him. She's not trying to outlogic him. She's not trying to accomplish more than him in a, let's say, in a getting things done sense. Her way of fighting him is by basically basically by overwhelming him with emotion, basically. So the first time they meet, it's kind of funny because Irene is known as a dominatrix, or not known. She acts as a dominatrix, you know, helping people live out their sexual fantasies and stuff like that. And she uses that as a weapon, basically, in the sense of she gets like incriminating pictures of like high-end officials who have done things with her and things like that. So Sherlock's trying to go out to stop her, I think, in this episode, in the first half. But the first time he meets her, she's completely naked, right? And not only is she doing that to basically throw him off emotionally, there is a, let's say, a practical element to that, because without any clothes on, Sherlock isn't able to deduce anything about her. He knows nothing about her. He can't figure anything out about her, right? So, you know, very intelligent move on her part, but also, I mean, she's playing with him, right? Later in the episode, she teases him as the virgin, and she teases him as, you know, this man that has never really loved or has really ever given in to his desires and things like that. And Sherlock's like completely perplexed because he has no clue what to do with this emotion, or at least it seems like that. But in the final scene there, basically, it was a really nice shot. But basically, this is what's happening the whole episode. They're basically trying to one-up each other. Sherlock is trying to outwit her behind her back. Irene is trying to basically emotionally compromise him behind his back, right? And they're basically in this kind of tug of war, against each other, to see who can outwit the other, right? Now, in that scene that I showed you, Sherlock won, but I'm gonna put that in air quotes. Sherlock figured out the problem, figured out the puzzle, right? But he did it at the cost of his emotional relationship with Irene, right? Because Irene truly, like, he found out Irene actually liked him, right? She's basically like flirting with him, telling him to go have dinner. He's like, why? I thought that's a pretty funny scene from the show. He's like, why are we going to dinner? Who the fuck cares? And despite all of her one-upmanship, she genuinely likes him, right? But what ends up happening is, much like with all thinkers, Sherlock sacrificed what could have been important, right? Namely, maybe having like a girlfriend that's super hot, right? He sacrifices that, right? In order, he does save a bunch of people. I get that, right? But the way that he does it basically sacrifices the relationship entirely, right? So as you saw in that clip, Sherlock is like, well, I figured it out. You're going to go to jail or you're going to get killed. Who fucking cares? I won. I beat you. Da, 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 right? And Irene, at first she was gloating, but eventually she's like, hey, she's trying to use emotion not only to save her life, but to try and rekindle this relationship that she wanted, right? And, she even goes so far as to say, right? Nothing I did that hurt you was real, right? I was just playing the game, right? So she's trying to rekindle or preserve this emotional relationship with Sherlock that is very valuable to her, that she wants to prioritize, right? But Sherlock sacrifices that, at least in that clip. So the moral of the story is, this is my favorite episode, really, because this helps me, or not helps me, it really represents to me the war that I have in myself, especially as a double decider. So I'm double activated thinking. I have ST and NT in the top 3. So thinking is really a big deal for me. I'm very nerdy. I try and figure things out, but I usually sacrifice the vibe. I sacrifice, having good things because I'm so focused on figuring something out. And I think this episode, I didn't have words for it at the time, but it really spoke to me because it kind of got to the heart of this back and forth tug of war that I feel with myself. And then, quite frankly, that I feel with a lot of savior feelers and a lot of people who use feeling against me, right? Like, I'm like, what the fuck is this, right? I get really weirded out sometimes even. I'm like, why are you talking to me like this, right? And I think in contrast, I think it shows how feelers probably experience thinkers. Thinkers are amusing, right? They're kind of nerdy. Irene calls them virgins, right? But they're kind of nerdy and like not really out and experiencing the world in this like alluring, I won't even say seductive way of living life, right? Where I think I do think feeling in a sense seduces us to live, and maybe that's a little bit strong wording. But I do think that there is something like that going on with savior feelers. They're trying to, get themselves to emotionally engage with life, and they're trying to get other people to emotionally engage with life, right? And so I can get how frustrating it would be for someone to, for example, experience me, and like I'm just dismissing all that, and I'm like, or I'm being just super weird about that, right? And so I think this episode really kind of captures that difference. Now, the key takeaway is, I would say, is if you're savior thinker, or if you're like really predominantly thinking, have ST and NT in the top three, I would, I guess, encourage you to pay attention to what you do with your emotions and with other people's emotions. Because yes, there is a time and a place to solve problems, much like with Sherlock. He had to solve that problem. Those people are going to die, right? But watch how you treat the other person. Like Sherlock basically treated Irene like shit. Basically, he's like, well, I figured it out. You were, you're stupid. Bye, right? And I don't care if you die. And notice how much he threw away in that process, right? Like Irene, yes, she was kind of this femme fatale figure for him, but she was probably as she mentioned, she's the only one that beat him, but she was probably also one of the few women that could operate on Sherlock's level, like emotionally, right? Or intellectually as well, even. And to sacrifice, it doesn't even have to be romantic, but like to even sacrifice like a friendship with that person or a relationship with that person, and to go back to being kind of this isolated figure, at least with Sherlock, who I think has TI, we'll get into that in a later video. Like, to sacrifice that, I don't think, I would caution anyone who's like savior thinking, to be careful and not prematurely throw away something that could be valuable, that could be worth prioritizing, right? And then for the feelers in the room, right, I would definitely say that I would encourage you to not, so Sherlock says, like, don't let your heart rule over your head. And I think that is what compromised Irene at the end of the day. She got too hung up with what she liked. I am suspicious she has FI. I'm not, I could be wrong, but she got too caught up in what she liked to prioritize like solving the problem at all costs. She could have made she could have made a random number. She could have made a random key. She could have done anything, right? She could have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for all we care, right? But she got so caught up in what she was emotionally enjoying out of this game, this back and forth with Sherlock, that she sacrificed the mission. She sacrificed what she needed to get done. And so what I would encourage the people in with savior feeling or double activated feeling in the top three is you have to, like, don't let your heart rule over your head, because there are times when it comes to getting things done that your emotions are a defect in the situation. I know that's kind of harsh to say, but it's getting in the way of getting things done. They're at odds in that sense. So anyway, I'm probably going to get copyright claimed. I hope I don't get copyright striked. I hope not. If not, that's a problem, and I'm gonna have to upload this again with just slides or whatever. But I hope you enjoyed this. This is definitely one of my favorite episodes. I do want to get a lot more to Sherlock. I did promise that I would make some Sherlock videos. I have not queued them yet, as you can see. Honestly, because I wanted to test to see if this copyright situation would be a problem. But I'm gonna make a few more. I do think I need to break down Sherlock's type. I need to break down John Watson's type and their relationship, John and Sherlock's relationship. Moriarty is another key one to study. And so there's quite a bit of content here. I'm going to be doing that. And then I also want to start breaking down the Bourne Identity. I haven't watched it in a while, but, a lot of OP stuff in there, right? Identity versus tribe, right? That's a very identity versus tribe type of movie, right? It's in the name, right? Bourne Identity, right? So I want to break that down as well. So if you like this content, or if you want to, give your feedback on what you think about this episode or what I said, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to leave a like as well, because that does help the channel. And then finally, I do have a snug for people who are extra nerdy and want to talk about it with me. Feel free. I would love to do that with you. So feel free to do that. But I'm going to head out. I did want to do this little mini test for the copyright thing, so hopefully it goes through. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you in the next video that I make. Take care.